Hello, this is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about this pretty wild interview that Tucker Carlson had with a man who claimed to have done the deed with Obama back in the day, and these allegations came out back in 2000 during the 2008 time as well. So, but I don't really remember this. I remember like someone that they mentioned who went to Obama's church. So it was a fascinating interview. I'll say that Tucker didn't really push back. And so I want to talk about I guess what they talked about. Is this even credible? And does it really matter at all? Spoiler alert, I guess nowadays, I guess it wouldn't really matter too much. Whether it's true or not, or even if that's not true, just a question of, is he bi? I don't really think it holds much weight today. I mean, in years in the present, I mean, it'll be years into the future. In years in the future, people will probably retroactively look back and would like to claim that as a positive for, so it's an interesting story, though. A lot of people are obviously talking about it because it dropped today's Thursday, so it dropped last night, and I did watch it this morning, so I want to talk about it. And also I want to talk about New York is just in crisis regarding their intake of migrants to the city after, because New York and stuff, they'd bus people from the border from Texas and stuff to these super liberal cities that say that they're sanctuary states or sanctuary cities. And they figured out very quickly that that's a bad policy to have, and they don't have enough resources or space to really accommodate all these people coming. So the mayor has said he sees no solution, no end in sight. So he delivered a frank but kind of panicked sort of remarks the other day, and the governor is trying to get resources and help from Biden to help integrate these people into society faster. But the mayor Adams, he's like, we're facing this crisis pretty much alone, and it's not getting better. So Abbott just really did a huge checkmate on these folks, and people said this is largely a gimmick, him sending people to New York and other stuff. And even people on the right had criticized him sending people up, like Carrie Lake, for example, had basically said it was like a gimmick or whatever. But it proved to be, here's a taste of your own medicine, of the things that you're advocating for. If it sucks for you all the way up in New York, imagine how much it sucks for these border towns. And why should Texas and Arizona and all these other places have to bear this burden without you getting a taste of it while you just preach your ideology from a far distance? So just very interesting things today to talk about. But before we jump into it, I encourage you guys to go to blackteens.com, check out different content on my website, different articles that I have, videos, etc. Thank you to those in the chat. I see you. Thank you very much. I'm glad you guys, thank you to those who catch it live. Thank you to those who watch the show back later, if they let this one stay up anyway. Because we're talking about some controversial things, I suppose, about their favorite little star. So thank you for catching it live while you can. I have no hopes that this will probably remain monetized or anything like that. So if you want to support Black Teen News, the best way you can do that is go to blackteennews.com/donate. It costs to stream, it costs to run my website, all that stuff. So you guys can support in that sort of way. I do appreciate it. Otherwise, you guys can send stars on Facebook. You guys can also send super chats and super thanks as well. So thank you guys. And I do try to read, the super chats and stuff. So if you guys send those, I'll address them, unless it's like a creepy, weird comment, guys. Or it might. It just depends to shame you, but it just depends. Also, check out different merchandise that we have available at blacktnews.com. Check out different merch, I mentioned it is, fall season. So my sister got some pumpkin spice for her birthday. So, people are drinking that. So maybe you might want to give them this little mug. It's a little funny. We got the other mugs, the You Are Not That Special. We also have a black tea mug as well, and other t-shirts. Well, we got that in a t-shirt as well. So you guys can check out different content we have. I got some, pro-life shirts and other content you guys can look at. Also, I do write books. I will be at Motor City Comic Con this fall. So if you're in the area and would like to come out or you plan to go anyway and you want like a signed book, I will be there. I have 17 books that are available right now. Hopefully it'll be 18 by the time that comes around. I'm trying to pump out a book, a sequel to one of the ones that I have already, but we'll see what happens. I'm trying. But two of my books are nonfiction. The rest are fiction. I, write from like children's to like adult or young adult or new adult rather. And historical fiction, fantasy, paranormal romance, all kinds of stuff. But the book that I talk about a lot on this program, of course, is Guys Blatantly Against Abortion. That's one of my nonfiction books, and it deals with theology, politics, it deals with rights and philosophy, and how to make a better argument if you are religious, whether you want to talk about your religion or not. Like you saying that I'm pro-life because I'm Catholic or something, that's not a good answer. I can understand what you're trying to imply, but people don't understand that. Well, I guess you could mean it like, well, it makes God upset. God doesn't like it. So therefore I don't like it. And in a religious, Christian view, that's reason enough, but you need to learn how to be able to justify the ethics that you stand for and why it's the best sort of worldview to apply as far as human rights goes. So I believe that this book will help you make those better arguments. And if you are a non-religious person, I think it will help you understand the position anyway. So that's available. You guys can get it on Amazon. Please follow me on Amazon if you're a book reader. You can just search for Christina L. Barr, and that's Christina with a CH. I do not have a funny for you guys today, so I'm going to just jump into the madness of this Tucker interview the other night. So, by the way, this Sunday, Tucker Carlson will be in Michigan, 1 p.m. in Utica at the Jimmy John's Field. The Brighter Michigan PAC has an event every year where they celebrate first responders. They give out scholarships, and it's a really great event. This is the biggest one that we've put on before. So, we'd like it to do well, but it's very exciting that Tucker Carlson is coming in and he's our keynote speaker. There's also going to be a concert and other things going on. So please come and enjoy. It'll be a great time. Hopefully I will see you there. And there's a link in the description if you're watching on Facebook and YouTube to some discount tickets. It takes off about at least $20. I know on a certain section of seats, but if you want a seat that's, closer, or you want one that's further away but cheaper, you can go to just brightermi.com and pick up your tickets. The tickets start at $50. So, all sorts of like political events and concerts and outings are on par with this price and way more expensive. So, if it's something you want to do, there's a price range for you. And again, I hope to see you there, whether you're from Michigan or Illinois or Ohio, wherever you want to come from, to be able to participate. And it's for a good cause. Again, Brighter Michigan PAC they helped me out, and I got to use their studio just out of the kindness of their heart because they wanted to uplift conservative voices, and I needed a space so badly to be able to do this and to grow my channel. And they did it at a time when I didn't have much of a following, so I didn't have much to gain other than just optimistic that I would thrive. So I appreciate them giving me the space to do that. So consider coming, and I will just play a little quick ad before I jump into the Tucker story. The biggest name in media is coming to Michigan for one day only. Tucker Carlson. See Tucker Carlson live September the 10th at Jimmy John's Field in Utica, Michigan. Visit Brighter MI for tickets starting at $50. Get your tickets at brightermi.com. Okay, so what an interesting news story today. So Tucker Carlson interviewed someone who claimed to have done things with Obama back in the past. So I'm going to play the little promo video that they played, and then I'm going to play the beginning of the interview. Obviously, I'm not going to play his whole interview on this broadcast. It's free, it's on Twitter, so anybody can go and watch it themselves. If maybe some of you have already watched it, I watched it this morning, but here is a snippet that was the tease that I guess got people interested to watch.
You're just a guy who's in town for the night, and it sounds like you're looking to party.
Yeah, pulled up in a bar outside, and there's this guy that's introduced to me as Barack Obama. I had given Barack $250 to pay for coke. I start putting a line on a CD tray to snort, and next thing I know, he's got a little pipe and he's smoking. So I just started rubbing my hand along his thigh to see where it was going, and it went the direction I had intended it to go.
Even though you had sex with him twice, you did cocaine with him, watched him smoke crack twice, you had no idea who he was.
I had no idea who he was.
Let me just ask the obvious question. What was Obama like on crack? Is it your sense that that's who Obama is, just transactional, or that he's bisexual, or like, what is this?
It definitely wasn't Barack's first time, and I would almost be willing to bet you it wasn't as long.
The guy's running for president, and credible information comes out that he's smoking crack and having sex with dudes. That seems like a story.
Well, it would be a story if the media really cared about telling people the truth.
So yeah, that was the opening trailer for it. Again, it's available on Twitter. I watched the whole thing today, and Ben Shapiro asked an interesting question. He's like, okay, after seeing the interview, why is it that some people find that his story is not credible, but they find that other people's stories are credible? Like Jean Carroll, I think it's Jean Carroll, but and Blasey Ford, which I didn't, Blasey Ford's story didn't add up at all. And so Tucker didn't really push back on him in his story very much. Like he mentioned, let me just play the beginning so you guys kind of can know what I'm talking about a little bit. But it was a fascinating, interview for sure. But there wasn't any sort of scrutiny on the story. It was just it seemed very assumed just that it was true.
In retrospect, it's pretty amazing that Barack Obama got as far as he did. In 2004, the summer of 2004, Barack Obama gave the keynote address at the Democratic Convention in Boston. And when he walked to the podium, probably only a small percentage of people in the room knew how to pronounce his name. He was totally unheard of. No one knew Barack Obama. At the time, he was a state senator in Illinois. 4 years later, he once again spoke to the Democratic Convention, but this time as the nominee. Meteoric doesn't begin to describe it. How did this happen? Well, the outlines are fairly well known, though rarely talked about. A small group of Democratic donors, mostly in Chicago, decided that Barack Obama was their guy. He was the vessel for their ambitions. They paid for his campaign. They paved the way for his rise. He spent 2 years pointlessly in the United States Senate preparing to run for president in 2008. And of course, in the end, he won. But the question was, Who was this man? Where did he come from? What did he spend his life doing before he became president of the United States? Well, the news media, whose job it is to answer those questions, spent the entire 2008 campaign trying to keep you from knowing the answers. By election day, most Americans knew only one thing about Barack Obama, other than he was handsome and a good communicator: hope and change. But they knew nothing about him, his origins, what he believed, and legitimate questions about those facts were turned away, as they often are, with the claim, "That's a conspiracy theory. You're crazy. Shut up." One of the most interesting moments in the 2008 campaign occurred when a man, like Obama himself, came from out of nowhere to recount his experiences with Barack Obama, the man. His name was Larry Sinclair, and he told an amazing story. He said that in 1999, he had encountered Barack Obama in Illinois, had sex with Barack Obama, and then used cocaine with him. Sinclair went on to make these claims publicly at the National Press Club in Washington, to sign a sworn affidavit, and to take a lie detector test. But he was dismissed. In fact, he was attacked. Obama shills like Ben Smith of Politico batted the claims out without refuting them. They're absurd. And the rest of the media followed suit. But the claims weren't absurd. We're not claiming they're true, but they were certainly credible. This was a firsthand account of Barack Obama's behavior by someone who was willing to sign a sworn affidavit to that effect.
So so that's the intro and how it goes. Again, you guys can go ahead and watch the rest of the interview, but like he mentions the lie detector test. Sinclair didn't pass the lie detector test. Now he, claims that it was bunk and all this other kind of stuff. Actually, someone what was it? Brian Cranston had commented under Tucker's video and mentioned that he failed the lie detector test. And so I replied underneath his comment and I said, Hillary Clinton doesn't stop believing in lie detector tests after her client that she got off for sexually assaulting. And I mean the hard R word, but I'm just trying not to get any kind of dings from social media. But you get my drift. When she got her client off for that, and he passed a lie detector test. So I got quite a few likes for that comment, even though it was a very terrible thing. So yeah, they're not the most reliable thing, but I think it was worth mentioning since he brought it up, that he didn't pass the lie detector test. He was willing. I think it's something that he's willing to do it, but again, I think it's just, to be a straight shooter that he didn't actually pass it. So, there wasn't, he said he wasn't, they're not saying the allegations are true. But he wasn't really pushed back on the claims at all in the interview. And, he said that he was credible. And I don't know what really, would make him credible. Like they didn't really make that discussion, that argument. Now people really tried to bring up his past back in the day when all this was like going on and he was making his public accusations. They mentioned that Sinclair has a criminal history, that he has done like check fraud and other things like that, and that he's a scam artist. So which those things were brought to light, and he mentioned, yes, I did this. Tucker mentioned that he had a press conference back in the day. Excuse me, I did begin to watch that. And he did address those allegations of his criminal history. But I will say that sometimes people choose people with salacious or sort of history. So if something comes up and they do ever decide to go public, I'm not saying this is what happened, but I just want to put that out there when someone mentions that someone has a criminal history or something in their background, that's they're expecting people to have that reaction. This is a general thing. I'm not saying that this is what happened with him, because it seems like, according to his story, the hookup that they have, they wouldn't have had the time, I think, to do this kind of background. So this doesn't apply, I would say. This is just a general statement. Sometimes people will choose people with a sordid history. So if they come public, people will point to them and say they're not a credible individual. And I'm aware of some circumstances, of politicians and folks that would employ certain people that were kind of more seedy individuals for such instances. I'll give an example that's in Color, Communism, and Common Sense. Um, and that was written by a Black man who had defected from the Communist Party. I've talked about it quite a bit, but the Communist Party would use like real grievances that Black people had, and then they would recruit them into communism, but they would never want your, I don't know, desire to help the community and the Black population to supersede your allegiance to communism. So just in case you ever decided to leave communism, they would do things to set you up. So like, oh, here's a nice white woman to have an affair with, or something like that. So they would entrap you in some kind of way to damage your credibility. So they would have dirt on you. So if you ever decided to do something, then they would get you. So that book was written quite a long time ago. I don't think, people of power and those institutions and politics has really changed that much. They probably, if they can get you in some kind of seedy thing to use some kind of dirt to, build a situation to destroy your credibility so you can never expose them because people won't believe you. I think that's something that is still going on and continues to go on. So, again, I don't think that even applies to this particular situation, but I just want to add that layer of information, just something to think about for those people who jump to they're not credible because X, Y, and Z. The people who don't want their stuff exposed, if they have things to even expose, they're absolutely depending on you having that talking point. But again, that doesn't mean that this man is trustworthy or that his account is accurate. So to summarize, he came into town in Chicago, to Illinois, and there was a driver. He asked the driver, he wanted a good time. He said he was not vague about what he wanted. It was very clear. And he said he knew a guy, and the guy that he got was Obama. And so he didn't find out from the time, they had a bit of a time, and then he came back in the morning and wanted like a, I don't know, repeat or something. So that's why it happened twice. And he didn't realize who really Obama was until years later when he like saw him like in the campaign and stuff and was calling people like, oh my gosh, that's the guy that I did X, Y, and Z with. And then he just didn't feel like the campaign was honest. So he reached out to them. And of course, first just about the drug allegation. And then he claimed somebody who wasn't with the campaign reached out to him and mentioned that Obama and them did the deed. And this person was someone who was actually a former choir director in Obama's church who was killed, who was gay, and people suspected that he had a relationship with Obama back in the day. Now, I do remember those rumors. I do remember those rumors. And they mentioned how he was murdered. I did find like a article from 2007, a choir conductor at Obama's church killed. Let me share my screen with you guys. So, but again, this is back in 2007. Police continued to search for the killer of a teacher who conducted the choir at well-known church where presidential hopeful Barack Obama is a member. Donald Young was found unresponsive by police early Sunday. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office ruled the death as a homicide. An autopsy found the 47-year-old Young suffered multiple gunshot wounds. Chicago police spokesman Wayne Frisbee said Tuesday that the victim's roommate returned to the apartment late Saturday and found Young shot in the head. The front door to the apartment was closed but unlocked. Frisbee said Reverend Jeremiah Wright Jr. said Young was well loved at Trinity United Church of Christ, where Obama, a Democrat, is a member of the congregation. Young also taught fourth grade and was planning to attend graduate school to become a school principal. So, yeah, that, and there was all kinds of things that people were talking about Obama's church, and it's like a Black liberation theology church, not like a normal Christian church. And so people talked about it a little bit, but mostly during Obama's rise, there was just like this, as Tucker said, this glow about the hope and the change. And people just didn't know a lot. Like that was the first election I got to vote in. And I did not vote for Obama. I don't like McCain, but I voted for the Republican ticket. But at the time, our church was like having church at a services in a hotel, and I think down in like Southfield. And so this elderly gentleman came up to me and asked, was I going to vote? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to vote Republican. And he's like, why aren't you voting for Barack Obama? And I was like, because he stands for a lot of things that are against my Christian beliefs. And he's like, Obama is a Christian. What are you talking about? And so I started listing a couple things. I don't remember all that I said, but I do know that I mentioned when he was in the state Senate in Illinois, how his position on giving medical care to babies that survive abortion, and he spoke out against the bill. So that was troubling for me. And of course, the things that I said, this man didn't know any of it. So, there's a lot of kids who don't know anything about politics. I absolutely know that from firsthand experience. But I know that there's a lot of adults who don't know anything about politics. So that was a situation where I'm saying things that this adult who's trying to like encourage me to be civically engaged, doesn't know much about the person that he's vetting, and he's just kind of banking on, what do you mean? He's a good Christian man. And it's like, what does it matter if someone claims that if the policies that they enact like don't reflect the morals and the values that we are supposed to share? So anyway, a lot of people just didn't know a lot about Obama at the time, and the media didn't seem really curious. Now, I don't remember how much this particular story with Sinclair was covered back then. Again, I don't remember hearing about it, but it was addressed, but people shot it down. They mentioned a reporter who shot down the claims, and Tucker just called him an Obama shill and stuff. But Greta from Fox, I believe she was probably with Fox at the time, but she wouldn't interview him, and she would relay back to that article that was dismissing his claims. So I I don't know. I've heard some crazy things about politicians that just seem so remarkable. But multiple things that were confirmed about other folks that I'm aware of. And it doesn't seem like the craziest story, to be honest. But that doesn't mean that it's true. That doesn't mean that it's true. That doesn't mean that you can trust this person. And but that doesn't mean that there's not things to be curious about. Now, does it matter? Does the story matter? I think it matters that in general, that there are questions that are just shot down, that people didn't have a big curiosity about Obama. And they were just, like the glow of him and the hope and the change and the fancy speeches, but nobody really did much of a deep dive. Like something like this would have obviously tanked this campaign if there was truth in it, or if it came out and people believed it, rather, regardless if it's true or not. If people believed it, that would have made it a big impact and derailed him. And maybe you'd have President Hillary Clinton that would have been president for X amount of years, as opposed to Obama. But there were other things, there's an interesting story that came out some time ago in Tablet magazine about Obama, and it was just looking at a profile of his um, life and the way he ticks and thinks, and particularly they opened up talking about a story that he told in his book Dreams of My Father about how he broke up with a girlfriend, and his account of the story is totally different than the actual girlfriend, and people are just kind of like, why didn't anyone care to ask the girlfriend and do a background check? Because the moment um that they describe, it's kind of like Obama breaking up with this girl over a disagreement they had was his turn to, like, you know, embracing this blackness and this rise of this person who'd become Barack Obama. Um, but in reality, he seemed very ignorant, I guess, on her account of the breakup. So it's called the article is called The Obama Factor, and again, it's from um Tablet Mag, the very long article. But there was something that was buzzing around that maybe you guys heard about. Um, but they said that Obama had given letters to another girlfriend, and for I don't know why you give this to your girlfriend, but um it said about that he had fantasies with being with other men. So that's a little interesting. There. Now you could say, what does it matter? This stuff like this would matter back then, certainly. Um let me just read that little section. Yeah, when it came out 6 years ago, Rising Star was like going into sort of the myth of Obama that was exploring who he actually was and how the media had those rosy colored glasses and stuff, and not seeing all this kind of other deep dive things. So a pretty legit biographer wrote the book. But they mentioned this article, yet when it came out 6 years ago, Rising Star was mostly ignored. As a result, its most scandalous and perhaps revelatory passages, such as Obama's long letter to another girlfriend about his fantasies having sex with men, read today to people who are more familiar with the Obama myth than the historical record, like partisan bigotry. But David Garrow is hardly a hack whose work can or should be dismissed on partisan grounds. He is among the country's most credible and celebrated civil rights historians, the author of the FBI and Martin Luther King Jr. and Bearing the Cross, which won a Pulitzer Prize for biography, and one of 3 historian consultants who animated the monumental PBS documentary Eyes on the Prize, as well as the author of Landmark History of Abortion Rights, Liberty, and Sexuality. So there's that allegation that has been, I certainly didn't read Rising Star, but this article people were sharing around and be like, oh my gosh, Obama did what? This says what? He wrote what to who? So there's been allegations or whatever, some of them are ridiculous, like stuff the terrible things they say about Michelle. Like I'm not a fan of them, but man, guys, people say the craziest things. Does this matter today? Not he's not the president. He's not running. Again, he has a lot of his hands still, I think, behind activism and media, and I'm sure he has his pulse and hands still on things that go on at the White House. A lot of the people who are there were people who were there when he was the president. So a lot of these people still have the same mind and jive the same kind of way. So he's still an influential figure, and he'll continue to be. But it doesn't matter too much. It's an interesting interview, an interesting conversation. Again, I don't I'm skeptical of the interview and everything that was said. but as far as the allegation, I don't know. I guess I find it believable. you know, and if anything, not just because of the rumors, the aggression to which Obama pushed LGBT stuff, and of course, it's a lot advanced and crazier today, and within the Biden White House than it was in the Obama White House, which they were both in the White House together. One was just president at the time, and now the other is the president now. But when the Supreme Court, ruled that gay marriage would be legal everywhere, everybody's going love is love, and the White House is draped in, LGBT colors in the gay pride flag colors. That was a little different. That was a huge sort of step jolt forward. Obama came out in favor of gay marriage, and I'm not saying that just because you're for allyship, as they would call it, that makes you gay. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm just it seemed like I've heard a lot of Black people say that it seemed like he cared more about those issues than Black issues or Black people. So and they were just like really aggressive with it. Even like how they would push to install gay ambassadors, or they would push to have the pride flags on the embassies all over the world. Here's a old article from The Guardian back in what was this, 2014. President Barack Obama's administration has taken the U.S. gay rights revolution global, using American embassies across the world as outposts in a struggle that still hasn't been won at home. Sometimes U.S. advice and encouragement is condemned as unacceptable meddling, and sometimes it can seem to backfire, increasing the pressure on those it is meant to help. With gay pride parades taking place in many cities across the world this weekend, the U.S. role will be more visible than ever. Diplomats will take part in parades, and some embassies will fly the rainbow flag along with the stars and stripes. The U.S. sent 5 openly gay ambassadors abroad last year, with a 6th nominee to Vietnam, now awaiting Senate confirmation. American diplomats are working to support gay rights in countries such as Poland, where prejudice remains deep, to oppose violence and other abuse in countries like Nigeria and Russia, where gays face life-threatening risk. It is incredible. I am amazed by what the U.S. is doing to help us, said Maruz Kruk, the editor of a Polish gay advocacy magazine, Replica, which has received some U.S. funding and other help. We are used to struggling and not finding any support. Former President George W. Bush supported AIDS prevention efforts globally, but it was the Obama administration that launched the push to make lesbian, gay, and bisexual transgender rights an international issue. The watershed moment came in December 2011, when then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton went to the United Nations in Geneva and proclaimed LGBT rights one of the remaining human rights challenges of our time, which is interesting because in the Podesta emails, I think there was an email with some people talking about Hillary Clinton and the gay rights stuff, and they seem to imply that she wasn't actually for gay marriage, which many of them said that they weren't, and they've eventually flipped and stuff. But it's she was in public, yes, we're there. That's the pinnacle. We're all that for that. But like internally, she really supported. I guess it doesn't matter now, but I thought it was an interesting email. Since then, embassies have been opening their doors to gay rights activists, hosting events, and supporting local advocacy work. The State Department has since spent $12 million on the efforts in over 50 countries through the Global Equity Fund, an initiative launched to fund the new work. Just weeks after the Supreme Court struck down parts of the Defense of Marriage Act last June, consular posts also began issuing immigrant visas to same-sex spouses of gay Americans. One beneficiary was Jake Lees, a 27-year-old Englishman who had been forced to spend long periods apart from his American partner, Austin Armacost, since they met 6 years ago. In May, Lees was issued a fiancé visa at the U.S. Embassy in London. The couple married 2 weeks ago and are now starting a new life together in Franklin, Indiana, as they wait for Lee's green card. I felt like the officers at the embassy treated us the way they would treat heterosexual couples, said Armacost, a 26-year-old fitness and nutrition instructor. It's a mind boggling change after gay couples were treated like legal strangers for the first 3 centuries of our country's history. Um, some conservative American groups are outraged by the policy. Brian Brown, president of the National Organization for Marriage, calls it a slap in the face to the majority of Americans, given that American voters have rejected same sex marriage in a number of state referendums. This is taking a flawed view of what it means to be human, being male and female, and trying to impose that on countries throughout the world. Brown said the administration would like people to believe that this is simply live and let live. No, this is a coercion at its worst possible form. Um, and it's there's some more to the article, but you know, it is interesting that people will tell us not to lecture other countries on some of the stuff that they do, but they don't. But they don't mind evangelizing, transgenderism and all this other stuff to countries that don't like it. Like, um, especially sometimes with these movies that they put out, and people lecture them like, oh, why won't you watch Buzz Lightyear or have this stuff in it? And um but yeah, I if it's true, I'm not I'm not surprised, I guess, if it's true. About the letter, about I mean, but he's married, he's to Michelle, seems to love his family, people look to that. So I in the grand scheme of things, does it matter too much now? I don't think so. Um, but it certainly wouldn't matter back then. Maybe it would have given people pause to what kind of policies that he would have. He probably wouldn't have won president if there was any truth to either Sinclair's allegation or his, if he had any sort of relations with the his person from his church, which again, that was a rumor I was aware of. But it's a wild interview. You can go ahead and watch it yourself. But again, they're trying to like process and look at some more stuff to see what checks out and what doesn't check out. But um it Tucker was just like, oh, that's fascinating, and absorbing it all. So it was more kind of like a chill podcast than it was like a interview, like a journalistic sort of interview. But yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. I want to go to Ben Shapiro's um tweet about it really quickly. Um 'Cause I thought it was interesting on what people will, because it sparked a debate like who's credible, who's not credible, why do you believe this, why do you believe something else. He said, serious question, after watching Tucker Carlson's interview with Larry Sinclair, why are his allegations significantly less credible than those of, say, Jean Carroll? I did not get her name right at all. Or Christine Blasey Ford. I'm just wondering why it would be so shocking for a young Barack Obama to have engaged in cocaine use and homosexual behavior when he admits in his memoir that he used a little blow and wrote to his girlfriend, I make love to men daily, but in the imagination. As for why does anyone care, this is legacy media's favorite pattern when an allegation that harms a Democrat is made. This is not credible. How dare you ask about this? Years of silence pass. Okay, even if it's credible, why is it even relevant anymore? Um, Question of whether it was credible, and people doing their due diligence about it would have been back in the day. But people did not just really have a huge intellectual curiosity about Obama. They just really didn't. And the people who did were shut down. It just seemed like it was just happened all very fast. And there was just a lot of magic and stars in people's eyes and stuff. And people didn't know a lot about him. He didn't have a large, resume as far as politics goes, I guess, because he just been in the Senate for 2 years. As a matter of fact, not too long ago, before he even became the nominee, or was thinking about it, someone asked him would he run for president, and he said himself that I don't believe in going out for a job if you're not qualified. But I guess he figured he was qualified enough, and of course he won, and it was a pretty historic election for obvious reasons. So but there was some stuff to look at, like the thing I mentioned about the abortion. There were some questions that he gave were definitely like eyebrow raising. Like he was asked about, and people assume like he was asked like when does life begin or whatever, or when, not when life begins, or when does a human rights begin. And he just had, he said that above my pay grade comment. I'm trying to remember what it was exactly. I know I put it in my book. Let me just I'm gonna pull it up really quick because I want to it was really eyebrow raising at the time. And a lot of people even reported on it wrong. um One second. Okay, he said I'm just going to read a little bit from the actual book. President Okay, before Barack Obama became president, Americans seem to remember Obama infamously stating, when life begins is above my pay grade. That's what a lot of people assume it is. If that's the case, why not err on the side of caution? If you thought there was a possibility of a baby was lying directly in front of your right tire, would you put the car into drive and hit the gas, or would you get out of the car and bring the infant to safety? A majority of Americans do not believe in hitting the gas, and 37% of Americans only want legal abortions for rape, incest. That is the plurality. If we add in the 12% who believe abortion shouldn't be allowed past 6 weeks and the 23% who don't believe abortion should be allowed past 15 weeks, that means a majority of Americans don't believe in the restrictions imposed by Roe v. Wade. 18% don't believe abortion should be allowed past 23 weeks, which is around the time of fetal viability. Only 10% believe abortion should be allowed up to 9 months. Why is this the directional push for the abortion lobby and its political sycophants? It's the only logical conclusion. The truth is, Obama's past abortion comments are much more egregious once you realize he was not asked when life begins. Pastor Rick Warren of Saddleback Church asked, "At what point does a baby get human rights?" So he was not asked, when does life begin? He was asked, when does a baby get human rights? And that's not a theological or scientific question. As a politician who signed his name on abortion-related legislation and executive orders, Obama obviously had an answer, but Obama realized his honest opinion was far too radical. At least it was at the time anyway. So yeah, that was, red flags, and people did talk about it and people did report on it, but people seem to not grasp the gravity of the situation. So there was all kinds of things that people could have looked at. People could have looked at his church and Reverend Wright and the things that he preached and the things that, they believe in those sort of congregations, and the fact that Obama was a member sitting there for years. People could have had lots of questions, but they were just enamored with the personality. And so I think Americans should not allow themselves to get back to that point, and they should ask questions of their politicians, particularly ones that don't have a lot of experience and a lot of a really big voting record and stuff, and you can't see how they govern. I think that's one reason why I'm like, guys, you really got to look at Vivek, because all he has is his word. All we have is his word, and for a lot of stuff, and there's been some flippity flopping and some dishonest things there. So people get mad when I point that stuff out. But I'm like, don't just be enamored with slogans that sound good. Obama had change, stood behind a change banner, has the truth hats and stuff. So you just got to dig a little deeper. Like if that's what you like, that's what you like. But just do a thorough, deep dive. Don't get caught up in a cult of personality to the point where you don't look and see who the person is that you're supporting. Period. Whether they're in office for a while and they have a record or they don't. Just, do some digging. But most people do vote for who they like, and they don't think about policy that much. Like policy plays a role, but most people vote for who they like. My dad had a saying, like the coolest guy usually wins. I don't think that was the case in 2020. So his theory kind of didn't pan out there. But normally it's the guy that people like, that they gravitate towards, and who they support. But be logical thinkers, because there's definitely some red flags about Obama that people could have brought up in the past. And I'm not trying to say because you may be bi or something that doesn't mean that you would be a good candidate or something. But people, hiding things about, their lives to that degree to show them to be more favorable in people's eyes, it makes you question what else they'll be able to do and hide to get to wherever they want to go. So that's why honesty is important. So anyway, I thought it was an interesting story to say the least. Anyway, let's move on. So in New York, they are just in such a crisis because of their policies, or their support, rather, them being a sanctuary city, believing that we should just have open borders and all this stuff. So Abbott, Governor Abbott of Texas, decided to flex a little bit and to make them live by their convictions. That's a good way to see if people genuinely believe what they're talking about, is to make them live by their own convictions. And so they bust people from the border who had crossed illegally up to New York. And it's amazing because if you go back to, like, I don't know, Trump years or whatever, and people are like, that's so awful, they won't let these people just come, and they're refugees. And then most of them are like migrating for economic reasons. And I totally get it, guys. I understand, but you need to come in the right way, because we don't know who all is crossing the border. But other people could go to, they could always go through the legal port of entry, and they're supposed to stop at the in countries that are I guess stable, I guess you could say. So if you're fleeing like way below, and you come up to another country that isn't I don't know, not all of them are maybe going to be as nice as America, but you can possibly stay in Mexico or somewhere else, but you want to come to the US, so that's why you keep going, and you don't try to seek a refuge somewhere else. And I get it, but we don't know all who's crossing our border. And it really seemed crazy during the time of COVID, when they were locking people in their houses, not literally locking people in their houses, but telling people that in Michigan, you weren't allowed to travel between your own residences. Like if you had a house down south and you wanted to go up north, maybe you had like property in the UP or whatever, they didn't want people like leaving, to spread the COVID and stuff, or there's only so many people you were allowed to have in your house if they weren't like immediate people who live there. So all this stuff was going on. Borders are open, right? So just a lot of madness going on. They're just inconsistent madness. But the border towns have had to deal with this influx of people. Some of them, criminals coming in, obvious, criminals, because I mean they're breaking the law by, illegally entering, but also rap sheets with them. You don't know if someone's dangerous. Some of them are coyotes, some of them are drug dealers. They're pushing in drugs and fentanyl and other things. And so people have to deal with these folks coming on their land, coming to their towns, and just overriding, everything. So Abbott decided to bus some of these people to New York. And they keep on sending the bus. And, they have waivers or whatever. They send them up. They're not like kidnapped. They're probably like, New York City? People know New York from all over the world. People buy those hats and say, I love New York and stuff. It's very iconic to America, So they're probably like, yeah, that's awesome. So they are sent there, and New York just can't take it. And we've seen Mayor Adams of New York cracking under pressure for a lot of reasons, because it's just draining on the resources. It's draining on the resources, and people see them housing them while other homeless people are on the streets, or you want to feed them, clothe them, or whatever. It's like, but you don't do that for us. And so people, started getting an attitude about how well you'll treat these people who come in, who broke the laws to get here, but you treat U.S. citizens like second-class citizens, I suppose. So he's had some comments about this for a minute. And so Hochul decided to, get involved. And so she's appealing to the Biden administration for help. And so here's a little snippet of her appeal and what she wants did I say Obama administration? I don't remember if I said, but Biden administration to help. This is what she wants.
That's why today I have sent a letter to President Biden formally requesting immediate executive action in 4 key areas. First, expedited work authorization so we can get these people out of shelters and into the jobs. Financial support for federal housing vouchers, schools, healthcare, legal services, case management, and shelter for us to provide to these asylum seekers. The use of more federal facilities to construct new temporary shelters. And reimbursement for the cost of our National Guard, which have been on the ground at these shelters throughout the state since last year.
So, they want these vouchers for their houses. They want to immediately put them in the workforce and do executive order stuff. And I know a family who, not too long ago had everything burned down in a fire, like a hoverboard caught on fire. And this wasn't in New York. This was in, in my hometown and stuff. And, they could not barely get any help. Our church, brought in some donations and clothes and other stuff for them to try to because they lost everything. So they needed stuff to help them get back on their feet and stuff. But there wasn't a lot of help, government help, for them in this disaster situation for the family. So when people see kind of stuff like that, and they're like, you want what for all these people who broke the law and don't belong here? There's people who've been complaining in New York. There's been people who've been complaining in Illinois and other places. But you know what? It's a sanctuary city. These people who you voted for, this is a sanctuary city. So now you're being tested. Do you really believe in this rhetoric? Do you really believe in these people and these policies? Are you going to live up to your own ethics that you espouse? And the answer is no. All these people are very frustrated. Now Hochul just wants to integrate them quickly, but Adams wants to at least send other people outside of New York, and other people no, you don't. You can't send them other places. They want them still to be centralized there. And he's like, we can't handle it. Hochul actually had gone to the White House the other day, but Biden didn't see her, which the press secretary was asked about that.
So, as for something completely different, I have a question on immigration.
Okay.
And something that happened here at the White House yesterday, because the president, justifiably, understandably, was focused on natural disasters and talked to the 4 governors of the states affected by the storm. Met with the cabinet on that issue. Also had time for a meeting with Bernie Sanders. But when the governor of New York came by to discuss a very urgent matter in the state of New York and across the country, a lot of big cities, he did not meet with her. Why not?
Well, look, as you just stated, there's a lot going on, and his chief of staff was part of that meeting. I believe Secretary Mayorkas was part of that meeting. Some of his very high-level senior staff participated in the meeting with the governor, which is, as you said, a very important meeting to have. He has a very good relationship with the governor. We've been, every time we're in New York, the president, in practically every time, the president engages with the governor. So they have a very good relationship. Look, the president has a lot on his plate. As you said, this is an important issue as well. But when you have the chief of staff, when you have the Secretary of Homeland Security there meeting with the governor, I think that shows how important the president thought this meeting was, to make sure he had his top people speaking with her as well.
Part away.
But not important enough to be there himself. It's valid that you got important people, I guess, meeting with her, but meeting with her about that particular issue just shines a light on how terrible the response has been and how big of a crisis it is. By the way, not too long ago, the press secretary said that nobody had done more to protect the border or whatever, or secure the border than Joe Biden. And I retweeted it. I think I said, why lie like this? Even people who like Biden and are going to vote for him should be honest enough to say, no, they're kind of bad at this border thing. Or maybe they're good. They feel that they're good because they want to have more people just kind of flooding. And then they feel like everybody should be able to come in if they get here in America and hope. And the funny thing about New York is that people were saying the Statue of Liberty, we should have people just come because of the Statue of Liberty, because what it says on the statue and what it means and what it represents. And the people with the statue don't want those folks there. They don't want them there. So here's Mayor Eric Adams the other day, just really giving a no hope kind of speech about the state of
support. And let me tell you something, New Yorkers. Never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an ending to. I don't see an ending to this. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City. We're getting 10,000 migrants a month. One time we were just getting Venezuela. Now we're getting Ecuador. Now we're getting Russian speaking coming through Mexico. Now we're getting Western Africa. Now we're getting people from all over the globe have made their minds up that they're going to come through the southern part of the border and come into New York City. And everyone is saying it's New York City's problem. Every community in this city is going to be impacted. We got a $12 billion deficit that we're going to have to cut. Every service in this city is going to be impacted. All of us. And so I say to you, as I turn it over to you, this is some of the most educated, some of the most knowledgeable, probably more of my commissioners and deputy commissioners and chiefs live in this community. So as you asked me a question about migrants, tell me what role you played. How many of you organized to stop what they're doing to us? How many of you were part of the movement to say, we're seeing what this mayor is trying to do and they're destroying New York City? It's going to come to your neighborhoods. All of us are going to be impacted by this. I said it last year when we had 15,000. I'm telling you now, with 110,000, the city we knew we're about to lose. And we're all in this together, all of us. Staten Island is saying, send them out to Manhattan. Manhattan is saying, send them out to Queens. Queens is saying, send them out to Brooklyn. No, it's not the game we can play. Open the floor up.
Yeah, so he's frustrated. He's frustrated. He also spoke out about the governor, and he's like, New York we feel like we are alone in this. We are really alone in this, handling the brunt of this crisis. So again, this is brilliant by Abbott, sending people there. and people were saying it's a gimmick and it's political, and everything is politics to a degree. So I'm not gonna claim it's not, and I'm not gonna claim it's not a gimmick. But it was also a very strategic move, super petty, but brilliant, and well worth doing. Um, especially with these results, because there's more people coming in, more than, and they thought it was a lot before. But something that is going down in Texas, a federal judge did issue that Texas Abbott decided to like put up big buoys and stuff to stop people from coming in from the water and stuff. But they said you can't block international waters like that. You need, because I was like, we're just gonna say, secure our border, and we're not waiting for permission. And the feds are kind of like, well, not the feds, but the the judge was like, no, you definitely need permission. So they already appealed it, and they said they'll take it to the Supreme Court if they have to. And I'm gonna have to look at their legal reasoning, because kind of makes sense that they're maybe wouldn't be able to do that. Now, do I think that it's a shame that the Biden administration is not securing the border themselves, and that the states feel that they have to go that extra mile to protect their border and their people there, and the law of the land and all that stuff? I think it's a shame, but I don't know if they can really decide to do that. So I could be wrong. Like I said, I need to look into it a little bit more, but it does seem to make sense that they can't just do that. But we'll see how that goes, because if they don't have good legal reasoning, if it gets up to the Supreme Court, I'm going to assuming that it would get struck down, and it'd probably just be worse for everyone going forward. I hope I'm gonna have to read their arguments and see if it's tight. But again, they shouldn't be in that mess, and New York shouldn't be in that mess either. But they are reaping the rewards of supporting policies that are destructive, that bring all these people in. And they just expect Texas and Arizona and everybody to deal with, and they're New York. They get to chill and do their own thing. They can preach their ideology from afar and try to impose it on everyone else, especially when they try to advocate we should just have the popular vote, and and California, New York basically decide elections if that's the case. But they don't want to live up to the hype, to what they actually say. So again, brilliant strategy from what Abbott did. There's a lot of people are still upset, like in the media, and they don't like what he's doing as far as busing the people there, but they're probably just more ticked off that it was effective, and people can see. I think I was watching like mainstream media one day, and they even were like, nah, this worked, because now you have not only the elected officials that are surprisingly vocal and upset about it, you also have citizens who are ticked off. Question though, will they actually vote differently? Will they make better decisions? I don't think so. I don't know how far people have to be pushed until they make radical change. I don't know what the answer to that is. I don't know. But hopefully we're breaching that point sometime soon, and we will have a very good case to make on why we should be the alternative option, as opposed to people going with the devil that they know. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoy the show. Please go to blacktnews.com to check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. Please check out different merchandise that we have, different shirts and so on, and mugs as well that you guys can check out, like the I'm Not the Victim that you're looking for. A lot of people really like that shirt. We got the goat shirt and the hoodie, and I have that in different colors as well, so you guys can check that out at the website. Do also have this denounce white supremacy, defeat Joe Biden shirt with a list of some of his racism on the back, so that one's a fun shirt. I also have it in long sleeve, and the long sleeve is quite comfy, so go ahead and check it out. I do also have a lot of books you guys can check out as well. I have my book of Slay Your Fear, How to Overcome a Spirit of Fear, which I guess is in time for COVID season. So it's not about COVID, but it's just I was very much inspired by people's freaking out about COVID, so I made this book. But it is a faith book, spiritual book, so if you're interested, you guys can check that out. I have other books as well, like my historical fiction fantasy series. You guys can check out. Also have like other books, like I write historical fiction fantasy and contemporary fantasy and paranormal romance and other stuff. So children's chapter books. And of course, I have my book, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion, which I did read a little bit, or try to read a bit from. I do mention a lot about politics, like Obama and how the abortion lobby is really pushing to the no restrictions. And it's funny because that's such a debate right now. And I give plenty of examples in it of politicians who believe in like no limitations at all. But Ron DeSantis mentioned that on the debate stage, and then the journalists were trying, like, no one's for that. What are you talking about? And that's just obviously not true. It's just obviously not true. And the Ron DeSantis team then rebutted and had a very nice collage of people, being for no limitations and saying so quite blatantly. So I showed that to you guys a couple weeks ago, maybe about 2 weeks ago. It was a Friday. So I go through that. I go through theology. I go through philosophy and the science and all that stuff. So check it out. It's a good read. It's a good book. My youngest sister actually did the artwork for me there with the hand of God reaching out to the little baby hand. She did such an incredible job. So I very much appreciate that. So I don't think she's in the chat. I didn't see her in the chat today. Sometimes she pops in, but she does really great work. There's something she's planning I'd like to share, but it's a little early, but I'll let you guys know when that time comes. But you guys can check out Tina's text portraits. That's her website. I think I have it written somewhere. I do not have it. It's Tina's text portraits.com. And so you guys can check out some of her art. She does, oil paintings, and she has these little teeny paintings. She can paint normal size. She also, it's text portraits because she'll draw a picture of you, but she'll do it like out of words, and she'll do it by hand out of like a phrase or your name and stuff. So she has some incredible prints you guys can get, but she does also custom work. So just go check her out. She's really really talented. She'll be at Comic-Con with me too. We usually sit next to each other, so hopefully they have not broken that pattern, because it really works out well. We need someone to watch the table when we go to the bathroom. So anyway, God bless you guys, and I'll catch you tomorrow.